Check 1, 2. I think that's good.
Hi everyone, it's Kelly Franklin coming to you from Seattle, Washington, the Mayflower Park Hotel, right downtown. And it's actually sunny today in Seattle. Don't let anyone fool you that it always rains in Seattle. I've been away for a couple weeks, and I apologize for that. But I'm very happy to be here with my good friend Chen, who is really shaking it up in today's environment with helping companies rethink the way they can do virtual meetings. And I thought he would be an outstanding person to introduce you to. And I'm excited to actually be here with him, not only here in Seattle, but in person. And so, John, thank you so much for taking the time out today to visit with me and to visit with everybody. And would love for you to introduce yourself and your good work.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Of course, we all came masked and gloved in here. We got this is actually our 6 feet, and we're projecting this way. So I too take health protocol seriously. But a little bit about me and my work. It's so funny. People have been asking me this because haven't you been networking more online? I'm getting a chance to meet a lot of people, and I start funny with that Steve Martin line, right? I was a small boy in the South. No, that's not. I was born and raised in Stockton, California. I went to school at UC Santa Barbara, so a very West Coast person. I got a job at that little software company across the lake from here, that's Microsoft, and I shipped 10 products, and I got 2 US patents when I was there, so very much into computer science, but always had this interest. How do we work on technology? And so I calculated now, Kelly, I've been meeting online 35 years.
Wow.
And so, I like to ask people, like, hey, do you remember Prodigy? Do you remember Prodigy?
I do.
Oh, see, yeah.
Sadly.
The worst part is like 90% of the audience is like, what's Prodigy,
Yeah.
right? And like it's like precursor to AOL. I was at Microsoft, and so the transition to the story was, I always had this saying, and I always said, I know there's something I'm supposed to do, I just don't know what it is. And an executive coach, right, for those who are coaches, came up to me and said, give me a weekend, and I'll tell you exactly what it is. And I'm like, well, that's enticing. So I flew to Huntington Beach, and in 48 hours, literally, Kelly, in 48 hours, I wrote the entire business plan for this company, which has turned out to be geotuning. And its core passions are around technology and adventure to create human change. Again, technology, adventure to create human change. Some of our early programs, I was on WebEx in 1999. Remember
Wow.
WebEx? Yeah,
I do remember WebEx, yes.
And so video conferencing was so new back then, and then what really hit big was something based on geocaching. So it's a high-tech treasure hunt. So we use that as a way to teach team and leadership skills. And so we had a bunch of devices. Now everything is run on the phone, so it does the scoring and the application and everything else. And of course, then March, it was suddenly different. So just to kind of catch us up here too, in 2011, I gave a talk about team building on Twitter. And a guy from Wiley comes up and he goes, that was a great talk. You want to write a book? and let me just tell you, people, if you're afraid, you have fear, just lean into it. Just say yes. And so I wrote this book. And so for the last 9 years, we've been able to see team building initiatives on technology. But the challenge was that everybody's like, wow, that's so interesting, but I'll buy the face-to-face event. So people voted with their dollars, and they still wanted face-to-face team building, which we do a great job of. And then in March, suddenly people got interested again.
I would imagine so. And that kind of leads me to my next question for you, given the work that you have done. What has really been on the hearts and minds of your clients as we all have collectively had to make this transition from, a face-to-face reality to this virtual reality?
What's on the hearts and minds of the clients? What I like to tell people is to realize and to give them some permission is that you've gone through one of the largest disruptions in the planet. And some of the disruptions we've experienced in our lifetime were like local to our economies. I mean, they're big, they're national, but in this case, I've talked to people in Saudi Arabia, Georgia, not the state, the country, New Zealand, right? They're all having the same experience. And, they were all on lockdown. And so I think that's the unique part, is that in the hearts of mind is, number one, in those first 2 months, you remember, it was just sheer panic, which was, I just need to think about doing something, transitioning and being successful in something. So that's why everybody moved on. In fact, the stats that we have said 10 million people were online prior to March, prior to COVID.
Yeah.
And now it's over 340 million. And for our U.S. audience, right, that's the entire population of the United States. So imagine the entire population of the United States, instead over the course of hundreds of years, moved in 2 months.
It's amazing.
And so that's what's in the hearts and minds. Right after that is that people are feeling disconnected.
Yeah.
We're people. We love to connect. And when we can't connect in this way that we're used to, right, which is, right, reaching out, touching, being with people, they felt very disconnected, and they were looking, how do we become reconnected? And the last one is around mental health. With this much disruption, there are more occurrences of mental health. And I told, I'm in the meeting professional business as part of what I do. And I was at a conference and I told everybody, watch out for your mental health. And as you can see from all of our social media videos, you see some people are kind of losing it.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you put that much stress and pressure and change on people. I think that for those interested in leadership and change, that's what happens. People who are not ready for change, it affects them greatly. And on the logical side, or on the quantitative side, here in Seattle, I had a friend who had a mental health challenge, and they talked about the system. It is completely overwhelmed here in Seattle.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And given those three areas that you talk about, and how those have been significantly impacted by this shift from face-to-face to the transition to virtual, what have you been able to incorporate, given your experience in the geo-teaming space and now the virtual teaming space? How have you been able to incorporate, make that transition for your clients?
So in March, when our first work from home order came here in state of Washington, I just knew that it's big and it's going to take a while. And everyone was like, oh, we'll be fine next month. And I'm like, I did not. I tried to take the long view. And so I started a course called Virtual Team Building. And what I discovered was that people need new ways to reset their goals for their virtual teams. Mm-hmm. They needed new rules of engagement because, right, we're in this box. They needed rhythm. You know how winning teams have rhythm?
Yep.
Yeah, I felt like they needed a new rhythm because of so much disruption. So you got to reset that. And that's led to results. And for me personally, that class actually went viral because I got picked up by libraryjournal.org. And I didn't know that this website is the largest library website for librarians around the world. So librarians started flooding into my course, and they were referring it because people were asking libraries, what are some work from home resources? So this original book came out and took off, and the writer of the article said, oh, and he's offering classes right now. And yeah, we were like sold out for months when that happened, and that led to my publisher sending me an email, and he goes, hey, do you want to write your second book, right? And so, yeah, and what's exciting is, in publishing, this is fast. They greenlit and fast-tracked this project, saying, we want to get this out now. And so the book started out being called Virtual Team Building, and after the work I did on a conference, which we can talk in a little bit, he comes back and he goes, I want to change the title of the book. And so Kellee, do you have any people in New York? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my publisher, bless his soul, is a classic New Yorker. He's a hard charger. He doesn't want to waste any time. He never wants to go backwards. But we were pretty far down the line, having a cover for the book. And he goes, I think we need to change the title of the book. And I've never heard him say this. And I'm like, I just agreed. Oh, yeah, I think you're right. And so the title of the book changed from Virtual Team Building, right? So this is to engaging virtual meetings. Mm-hmm. And what we saw, of course, as a publisher was that the audience goes up by a factor of 10 to 100 or more.
Wow.
Some of us need team building, is kind of the evaluation the world makes. But all of us have to meet. And we're all trying to get something done. And the problems that are out there is a lot of bad meetings. A lot. For a variety of reasons. And this is just, for me, like on purpose of what I do, I'm just trying to make the world suck a little less, just a little bit, make our meetings just a little bit better. And so this is my way of doing it.
And that's what I would ask our audience here today. How many of you have engaged or participated in a bad meeting? And I would imagine that the majority of us have participated in a not very engaging meeting. So that leads me to my next question for you. What are some of the methods and techniques that you offer your clients and in your book that would be helpful for all of us to consider as we, that could be helpful not only in face-to-face meetings, but most certainly as we are engaging more and more in, virtual meetings?
Do you mind if I share the 6 points, the method that we
I think that would be perfect.
Oh, wow. Thank you. All right. So the method we created is engage, right? It's a 6-letter acronym. Every letter means something. And so the first one is if you want engagement, engage. Sounds simple? Well, it's not, because a lot of people are not doing it. If you've been in that meeting where one person just diatribes 60 minutes and they go, okay, our meeting's done, right? That's not engagement, right? That's a webinar. In fact, that's not even a webinar. Just record that and send it to me and I'll watch it later, right? But if you want to spend my time together in a meeting, then let's interact. And so we have always a strategy to engage and interact every single person. So that's one. That's E. N is never lead a meeting alone. We have technical help, right? If you're leading a high engaging meeting, have a producer. So the reason why is, let's say if I'm the speaker, I can now, right, focus on you. And my producer now can do things like let people in, turn on record, they can chat, right? And so unless you're just an incredible multitasker, and even for me after 35 years of practice, I can get overwhelmed online. So N is never lead a meeting alone. If you're on Zoom, we like the short version. Never Zoom alone. All right. Okay. So that's N. G. G stands for good looks. If you've seen right here, we've actually done a little bit of work, right? So we have this beautiful plant here. We have some lighting. We have this right here. This was like given to us as some of that. And think about how can you look good online. And the inverse of it is, if you haven't seen this, so Kelly, have you ever heard of twitter.com/rate-my-Skype-room?
I don't think I have.
They're room raters, and they've been rating famous people's rooms, right, since Skype's been around. Yeah. So a long time. And so they look at your backdrop, and then they give you a number between -10 and 10, and you'll see like art, plants, right, bookshelves are all like themes. And so, yeah, G is for good looks. And it really helps, even if you don't like it, it helps your audience, because if they're talking with you or you're the speaker, it's pleasant to look at. A is this, air traffic control. So we have one mic here, so we can actually do the very rare thing, which is like, Kelly, talk with me at the same time. So just talk over me now.
Yes,
right?
So
that works in face-to-face, but if you're on Zoom, that doesn't work. And so the key here is what we call air traffic control. Until our technology changes, you just need somebody to help moderate the conversation, whether it's you raise your hand and somebody's just like going around and who's next, and just so you don't have people talking over, or to other ways, just so that again, two people are not talking. That's air traffic control. The next G is get productive with virtual tools. So I've shown a lot of people. Did you know that Google Docs and Microsoft Word lets up to 100 people edit a doc at the same time?
Wow, that's helpful.
And
what? And could be disastrous. I don't know.
You have to trust your teammates to do it. Yeah. But as early as 10 years ago, one of my good friends, Adrian Sagar, in a 90-minute session, had 45 people at a real conference all log in for 45 minutes. They could not physically talk to each other. They could only write and chat to each other. And they wrote a entire case study in 90 minutes.
Wow. Because
they figured out a system, and they were all writing in different sections. And they finished it. It was an incredible piece of simultaneous work. Some things not only are good online, some of them are better. So that get productive with virtual tools. And the last one is E. And E is end on a high note. Find some way to end this time on a high note. And we took this, which is like, something inspirational, have everyone check in, right? Just do something like, give me on a scale 1 to 10, how was this meeting? But find something to end on a high note. And what we found was in product marketing research, they do 60-minute demos.
Yeah.
If you do something as a high note in the last 5 minutes of a product demo, that person is more likely to buy your product.
Wow.
And your meetings are exactly the same. If you want people to come back and to be ready and to be engaged and have their cameras on, if you end on a high note, it's more likely.
Yeah, those are great. So can we just go over those real quick?
Yeah.
So it's engage. It's an acronym, so that'll be easy for all of you to remember. But just for some of us with short-term memory, John will repeat what that acronym stands for, so we can write that down. So John, take it away.
Perfect. E, engage, which is engage and interact with every attendee. N, never lead a meeting alone, right? Bring someone else. G, look good. We try and give some markers. So like this is for the kinesthetics in the room, right? A, air traffic control, which is control your airspace. G is get productive, right, with tools. So this is the hammer. So use all the different tools and start with all the ones that are built in before you start to go out to all the other ones, and use them one at a time so your audience understands how to use it. And the last one is E, which is end your meeting on a high note. So just end on a high note. If you end on a high note, and architect some different high notes in your program, you'll find that your meetings are way more engaging as opposed to painful.
I think all of those are wonderful, and I mean I think it speaks to. I would argue that when we meet face to face, we have not always been very thoughtful about how we design meetings, and I emphasize with mostly my graduate students and sometimes with my clients, I get an open invitation to suggest to them that that meetings are just as important an element of the process as other parts of business, and even more so when we move to a virtual space, it becomes even more important that we think about design. So I think that you're creating this acronym to create a very simple container to help us be thoughtful about designing an experience that is going to produce positive outcomes for team members, is going to really create better business outcomes for people, which is what we want for our companies. So I think that's great. And so kind of follow up on that, given, and you mentioned it at the outset of our conversation, that we've had this shared global health experience. You've got international clients, I've got international clients. I've taught 4 global graduate courses this summer, which students were dispersed all over the world, and one of the things that did connect all of us is that we were all going through this shared experience. And given that the likelihood that this experience is really going to alter familiar environments for the foreseeable future, what are some things that you believe are effective virtual options that can do to help continue to help us create that community and connection? And what industries in particular do you think will benefit the most?
Oh, wow. So the first part, what's resurfaced here in the virtual world is the invisible thing that that Kellee has been trying to create here and on all of her classes. And that's psychological safety. So Kellee, what does psychological safety mean to you? Just curious.
Oh gosh. Creating shared emotional community and membership, and people feeling like they have input and value into a shared experience. I mean, in very short order, right? That's what you're really trying to do.
Yeah, and so what I tell people all the time is that psychological safety is the invisible thing, right? That you are, let's see, you're going to get the right, where's my box? Here we go, there's my box, right? Well, you're trying to build inside of this box. And what I mean by that is Google, of course, did this amazing research called Project Aristotle. So if you haven't seen it, you got to go look for that. And they said that the number one factor, they looked at 18 months of research of all their teams that were failing and not failing or succeeding, and they were like, what are the key factors? And they thought, is it your manager? Is it your pay? Is it all these other things? And it's like, nope. It was how much psychological safety was in that team. Teams with high psychological safety, where people feel okay taking a risk and saying what they mean, they performed way higher on average than on the other team. So that's what I really talk to about people about. What do you also want to think about when you're creating your meeting is bringing that psychological safety, that the space you're creating is safe, that it's inclusive, that you find ways, right? Something as simple as this. So if I go through this and Kelly and I are on video and I just come around and I say something and then I go, hey, Kelly, wait, let me go, Kelly, right? Let me ask you this question. Can you just tell me how you feel right now, right? So Kelly can now be having her own reactions to this, as opposed to when I come around and I said, "Is anybody on the call would like to share how they feel?" Mm-hmm. And we're actually training our trainers right now. Like, the default is you should not call on people. The default to help create that safety, if you ever watch the calls that I'm working on, if I ask that question and the air goes dead, I'll let it go dead for quite a while. And I'm gambling, which is that the extroverts in the room won't be able to take it.
Yeah.
And so somebody will contribute. But what it also does, why it's important, is because people are responding in their time when they are ready. When I put you on the spot, right, I remove some of that safety going, whoa, right?
Now I have to say something. Right?
Yeah, and I don't know if I feel good about this meeting or not. As opposed to when you said it, when you were ready, you're like, why do I feel so respected in this virtual meeting?
Yeah.
Right. So getting on to the second part, though, is talking about the industries. Wow, what industries are going to benefit from this? Well, it's not the one that I'm really good friends in, which is the hospitality industry. That's a challenge. Although I did think about, what if let's just pretend like Hilton re-established their brand as a virtual brand that you could meet in a Hilton room, but it was like this right here, like studios, or as professional, or it was just their branding. If they met up with a meeting platform and branded, I thought that would be crafty. I do believe meeting and salespeople, though, we've been able to contact more and more people with that. Already booming anything that's virtual too. So I know a lot of people who create virtual conferences right now. They're booming. Obviously, Zoom and Teams. Teams had a 39% increase. So technology companies are actually doing really, really well right now.
Yeah.
And who else is going to benefit in this? I see I don't know. There's a lot of movement right now too. There's a lot of change. So real estate agents are still doing really well too. So I don't know. I have to think about the other industries, but I know that tech for sure is doing great.
Yeah.
And the people that are related to that tech are also doing great too.
Yeah, I think what you see is companies who were already thinking of some of the tech enablement have been able to push forward and push through some of these things.
Yeah.
Some of the medical communities.
Yeah.
I think that really being thoughtful about how the balance between human connectivity is where I would like to see companies remain thoughtful of, and not totally disconnect and totally go 100% virtual, but the aspects that you talk about, how can we create the psychological safety? I think the more we can integrate, the human touch into high tech. I mean, we've been talking about this for years, right? But now we are the petri dish and get to experience it. Is how we do it, and ways that I've been able to incorporate that. And we talked a little bit about this before we started our conversation here. Was, when you start a meeting. A little bit to your ENGAGE acronym is with a check-in and inviting people to really just share, particularly at the outset of the pandemic, so people that can talk about what they're balancing at home, because people are in a variety of different situations in their home environment and having work and kids and maybe individuals that might be ill and a whole variety of circumstances that they're dealing with, and just allowing them to talk about that, talk about their fear and their anxiety about the unknown, because you can't attend to the work that your company might be dealing with unless you attend to the human spirit. And so I think to your reflections, allowing humans to be human and allow that engagement to drive the conversation, I think, is so important. And so I appreciate those reflections that you had. So we both share experiences working with very complex and complicated client environments that
Yeah.
teach us a lot about how we are interdependent and interconnected, and both from a human perspective and a technical perspective. And given this new reality,
Mm-hmm.
what are some key pieces of wisdom that you embrace that sustain you through these waves of uncertainty?
Let's see, wisdom. Well, I'll go back to the one you just talked about, which is either your intuition or your research or wherever it is to connect with people at the beginning. It was given to you by one of my other friends, Michelle Cummings, who's also a team builder, and she borrowed it from someone else. But the key phrase, right? Connection before content. Connection before content. Just by doing that, I feel like you probably get into the top 20% of the meetings, because most meetings forget. They don't even do that. And humans want that. I've seen other stories where they instituted that for the first time, right, in weeks of meetings. They got more done not only during that meeting, but then the entire day with that small, simple technique, connection before content. What other pieces of wisdom? I believe that I don't like the P word and I don't like U word, right? U, unprecedented, P, pivot. I don't like either one of those, even though that's kind of what we need to do. We're kind of like, the first week I felt it was okay, but I'm done with those. But I like adapt. And what I want to say about that is like, is flexibility. I think flexibility is power. I'm actually somewhat, I don't know if I'd say happy, but I'm like, I'm thriving in this environment, and that's what we all need to like. First, you got to get through survive, and then if you can get to thrive, I think that's a great place. So to try and figure out where your place is, and through that is from flexibility, your ability to handle a wider variety of challenges and be flexible. I think is so important right now because there's so much less certainty every day that you need to be able to deal with that and handle it. And if you can handle that with grace and ease, I think you're going to be in business for a long time because people are looking for people like you to really help that out. So yeah, so flexibility, connection, and what else do I lean on? Right now, I'm kind of living my best life ever, and what I mean by that, I have a friend. He does that. He said, "What if 2020 was your best year ever?" Isn't that weird?
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, it's a weird question. Okay, so but if you think about that, I used to travel. I used to travel a lot, and it's kind of very hard to be healthy during that. And I'm actually happy to say I build some structure and routine, and some of it is daily, and some of it is weekly. And I think that can really help people by getting into that, by having that structure. So for instance, an example is I get up at 7. At that point, I can, usually we wake up, get coffee if we're in Seattle, and then we go exercise. If I get it done right, I get my exercise done in the morning, and I cleaned up before 9. I work 9 through 12. We have lunch. Most of the lunches I try and get between 12 and 1, and I try and do them completely offline. I hopefully have them in my beautiful backyard when the sun is out. Work 1 through 5, and then every week we have some structured things. Like Wednesdays and Fridays, we have an online happy hour. By the way, if you're hearing this, you're invited. It's at geoteaming.com/events. And, drop in and see how we run a happy hour. And then again, when we run karaoke, right? So we actually sing with people from around the world every Saturday at 9 o'clock. And all these things help us. Like that karaoke helps us have that illusion of like we went out. We dress up sometimes for it. We actually feel like we went out, right? We drank a bunch sometimes during that. And so to me, I think those are the 3 things that have really helped me out during this time.
I've heard that from other individuals that I've had the good fortune to speak with through this series, is that a routine has been helpful for them, just to create some degree of cadence and feel like they, in an otherwise time period where they can feel sometimes like they're not productive.
Yeah.
It makes them feel like they're reaching some milestones, and so coming up with a routine, even though it may, in our previous life, may seem not as laborious, but in some level, I mean, when I think of Tibetan monks who create a pretty regular cadence, right, which is about prayer and eating, I think that maybe some of this might actually be good for all of us.
Wait, I have something to add too.
Yeah.
This is brand new. This morning. This
Yeah.
morning, right? What you get? Like I said, results earlier.
Yeah.
I've actually lost 11 pounds.
That's awesome.
Since COVID started, and to me, it's mainly around eating at home as opposed to eating out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's nothing that will help you stay at least engaged, if not excited about what's going on, by creating a result you've wanted for a long time.
Yeah. And I think the other thing you mentioned there that I think is important for us all to think about is the giving back aspect. You've created and designed several different ways that you've used your gifts to create fun opportunities, to invite colleagues, and to really give back.
Oh, do you want to hear about one of them?
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the karaoke. You talked about, but I think that's like important for all of us, not just for this period of time, but once we get, hopefully, back to some degree of normalcy.
Yeah.
That I think we all have gotten a lot out of the giving back, and I think prior we've taken that for granted.
Yeah.
You're
too busy.
Share, yeah.
So actually, someone taught me about like 6 human needs, right? So this is, oh wow, Kelly, this is like, do you want to know why anybody does anything?
Tell me.
Okay, there's 6 more things you have to remember, right?
Yeah.
I'll try and do the quicker version, but go do the research on it. It's called the 6 human needs, and it says this, right? All of us as humans have the need for certainty or security, duh, right? Mm-hmm. But right now we have this variety that's going on. But the funny part is that we need that security and variety at the same time. Okay, so you need some things that are stable, and then at some point you need something new. So I don't know. Somebody made a joke about that, right? If you believe in God, right? God, when God made us, he had a sense of humor because he gave us these two simultaneous needs that are too hard to fulfill at the same time. Okay, so security and variety. The next 2 are connection, which we've been talking about, but the other one is. What is this? Connection, a need for uniqueness, right? To feel that you're really good at something or that you're unique. But of course, these are kind of at odds. So like when you're connected to the whole group, sometimes you can't be the top outstanding student because you're the top outstanding student. You get like, you get pushed off out of all the social groups. So we're getting to the last 2 is growth, and the last one is contribution. So growth is you growing, and then contribution is your ability to give something with little or nothing expected in return. One of my greatest stories, though, is using these virtual skills to help people. And so right now, I was part of a group that we have 12 black entrepreneurs here in Seattle. And they're part of this group. It's an accelerator to try and help their businesses go on. And of course, then COVID happened. And so we were able to produce a program for it where 9 of the entrepreneurs did something at Sharks on the Beach. So Sharks on the Beach is like a Shark Tank program, but very friendly. So it's not really, not trying to be hardcore. And some of them actually won some grants. But we took that program, produced it virtually, had everybody that would normally attend, about 150 people would attend this regular program in person. All those people committed to log on, watch the live stream that we had for it, and share it. What happened is that stream has been seen by 15,000 people.
Wow,
now.
That's great.
And all of those entrepreneurs in the program, by the way, they're not only surviving, they're all thriving. And if we want to know why that's statistically significant, I believe the last research I said says 30 to 40% of all the black-owned entrepreneurs will be bankrupt by next year.
Wow.
And all I'm saying is it's not in this group.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think that my hope is that through this period of time, we can look back at the many gifts that we've been given rather than, some of the hardships. I mean, we learn from the hardships, certainly, but there have been so many stories just like what you've shared that I think reflect the good spirits that come through during these very difficult times. So I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate all the good things that you've been able to do. So I mean, I have one final question. Our time has just flown by, and I really appreciate all that you have shared with me and everyone today. So as we begin to co-create this new reality, what are some final thoughts that you would like to share with everyone out there that you think might be helpful and also hopeful.
Helpful and hopeful. I had to write the last chapter in this book. It's funny. I was actually on schedule to write, and I wrote this book in a third of the time of my last book. Let me tell you that don't recommend that. I was averaging like 6,000 words a day.
Wow.
I think Mark Twain only averaged like 14 or 1,600 a day during over his lifetime. But anyways, what I thought about this is that here are two things that I think that are really going to happen that maybe look forward to in the hope. Number one is because we're meeting like this virtually, look for opportunities. So, for instance, as a team builder, we started recording using GoPro cameras on all of our team building events and then reverse analyzing the footage. And from that, we can actually tell you there are 7 things, right? 7 things that winning teams do that losing teams don't. And we have it on video. You can actually see the examples of it. Now what happens, well, in meetings it was really hard, right? To rig this whole meeting room up with cameras and stuff, kind of awkward. And then people definitely, they're different. You know what I mean? But now people are like, oh, well, they're used to cameras now because they're everywhere. You can't really participate, right, without this camera. And so if you just hit record, there's all these new opportunities to find out how we as humans connect, collaborate, and perform. And what I mean by that is, and now too, with all this AI and big data stuff that we have, imagine if we had at some point a real-time meter now here at the bottom saying, how engaged are the attendees watching this, right? How engaged are you? And you could see it, like, even if their camera's off, but if it was reading them, you can actually see up, down, how much they're participating. And automate all of that. I think there's some real opportunities for that. Like you can actually reverse analyze breakthroughs. Imagine that somebody has an emotional or a physical or a business breakthrough in a meeting and you can see it. You can see how it develops. So I think there's that. And I really think that I've always written this thing, it's called the theory of bandwidth, which said, with little bandwidth we could do little things, which is like text messages. And you could send quite a bit, but only so much, right? Then you go to audio, then you go to video, right? And then I do believe that the next level of bandwidth is going to allow us to do some things, holodeck-ish like. Whether it's
That'd be cool.
Yeah, right. Whether it's virtual reality or augmented reality. I've looked at it. It's like 0.5% of the world right now that is really interested in this. But there is something that's going to happen, that's going to break through, and you can already see it now. Like Zoom already just did a recent update. I don't know if you saw the features for that. That's what I said. These video platforms and everything else that we have, you're going to see massive amounts of innovation rapidly.
Yeah.
Because the demand is so high, and I do believe that there will become something where we'll feel more like we're meeting in person as soon as the technology catches up, and that's what I hope you look forward to. And I'll give this piece of hope right now. Realize the gifts that you have now. You can travel and meet people around the world and still have, lunch and dinner with your pets, your family, your kids, and people are realizing like, oh, I don't have to be on the road, right?
Yeah.
I can still get my business done this way and still fulfill my other goals in life. And I think people may not go back for that reason alone, because those family, right, is so important. Your connection, your close connections are so important.
Well, and I think that, that's so much why I wanted to have this conversation with you today, is that I do think that this, period of time has illuminated for many of us who spend the vast majority of our career in planes and hotels, that we don't necessarily have to do that anymore, but how can we make, when we do connect through technology, how can we make it meaningful and engaging for everyone involved? And so that's why I think the work that you're doing is so important for team leaders and company executives. So I'm so grateful that we were able to connect while I'm here in Seattle. It is nice to be here in person with you. However, I will argue that. But I would encourage people to check out John's work. So with that, I'm going to ask you, how can people find you and get in touch with you?
Well, easiest way is our website, geoteaming.com, geoteaming.com. You can do a /EVM for engaging virtual meetings. And by the time you probably hear this, engagingvirtualmeetings.com will be up. So either one of those ways. This book will come out in October, and so I hope you can join me. I have 9 of the world's top virtual presenters and facilitators coming on October 21 through 24th, 2020, so whenever you saw this. And I hope you can join us for one of those types of things. So this Engaging Virtual Meetings has really taken off. We have producers for you. We have lots and lots of resources that will help you in your life, and people are getting results from it. And to me, as a consultant and just as a human in this world, that I'm doing something good to help people in their life, that's what I feel best about. Thank you.
Well, it's awesome to be back with you all today, and glad I could introduce you to my good friend John. Please do check him out. Please check out his good work, and I know it will be beneficial to you and your companies, and I hope to be back with you again very, very soon. So take good care of yourself and be in touch. And yeah, I'm going to go out and enjoy the day in Seattle. Take care. Bye-bye.
She's going to get coffee and see the Space Needle.
That's right. Bye, 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 bye.